Hi everyone, my name is Katie Hufker and I'm a software engineer on the privacy infrastructure team at Meta. I spend a lot of time working on privacy incidents. I help ensure they're handled quickly and effectively and review them to ensure that we're learning all we can so we can do better in the future. During COVID, after I gave up on my sourdough starter, I decided I needed a reason to get out of the house and decided to join the local volunteer fire department. After dealing with fires and real-life emergencies in the physical world, I realized there are some parallels between the two and wanted to share some of those with all of you. So before we really get started, what is a privacy incident? It basically means that something's broken and maybe we're violating either an internal policy or an external commitment we make to our users. Two of these examples were that we had unencrypted payroll device on a stolen external storage drive. This is notable because we do care about the privacy of our employees as well as that of our end users. Another one that is pretty representative is that a non-friend could comment on a live stream video that had the comments restricted to only friends, so we violated one of our privacy settings. One notable thing about how we handle things at Meta is we treat vulnerabilities largely the same as active incidents. For one, we don't always know right away if they're being actively exploited, and regardless, it's important that we mitigate them quickly and effectively and learn from them so we can improve going forward. So first, we need to figure out that there is an incident in the first place. So on the fire side, in the US, even very young children are taught to dial 911 if there is an emergency. From there, they reach a trained dispatcher who's able to gather all of the necessary information to dispatch resources according to a pre-plan. So for example, if there were a fire at my house right now, I know I'd get 3 engines from our local fire department, 1 each from 3 neighboring departments, and an ambulance. To dispatch these, they send tones out over the radio that activate pagers or alarms in stations that are loud enough to wake up people even if they're sleeping. So how do we do this on the privacy side? First, we need to ensure we have ways for everyone to flag potential privacy issues, even if they're a new joiner, even if they're not an engineer or don't work on privacy, even external users through things like bug bounty programs. Then we need calibrated people who are able to help triage and pull to determine the severity of the incident, as well as pull in help so it can get resolved. Especially at a large company like Meta, it's hard to know who's on call for what at any given moment. So we have a helpful on-call tool where people can easily look that up. In addition, we have robo-dial tooling so we can call people, and it's set up to bypass silent on their phone, so ideally we can reach them even in the middle of the night if necessary. One other thing to note is that here we'd rather have false positives than false negatives. One example of this on the 911 side is we had someone call about a bird stuck on a telephone pole that had flown away when we got there, but they thought there was an emergency. Likewise, for privacy incidents, it's better to make sure we're getting potential issues flagged. Likewise, we don't want to goal against issues because that might disincentivize people from looking for privacy issues or filing them as incidents so we can handle them appropriately. So now that we have an incident, we need to figure out the extent of the incident. So for an actual fire, the first thing you do when you get on scene is the officer, someone on the truck is going to give a size up to report what you have. So for this picture, I might say, Engine 1 to dispatch, I have a single-story building with heavy smoke and fire. That way, both dispatch and any incoming units know what's going on and what to expect when they arrive to help. Next, someone takes the time to do a full walk around the building so they can look for things like, do we have potential victims? Are there any exposures that might also catch fire? Do we have downed power lines? That way we're able to prioritize actions so we can help make sure we're protecting life safety of both potential victims as well as our responders. And it's very important too, all of this information is communicated over the radio, so again, incoming units know what to expect when they get there. So when you file a privacy incident in whatever centralized place your company uses, make sure the initial report makes it clear what's going on and it's not just generic product has generic privacy issue. Then take a few minutes to do a virtual walk around of sorts. Do we know if the issue is being actively exploited? What's the real world privacy impact? Does this affect potentially all of our users or just a very small subset? Also, as part of this, consider whether it might make sense to just turn off the feature temporarily until you're able to mitigate the privacy issue. Also, make sure that you're posting all of this on the centralized incident to keep people up to date. Also, for particularly large incidents, you might want to consider splitting things into work streams. So you might have one set of people working on a mitigation while another set of people are working on the forward fix. For any incident, communication is critical for making sure everything goes smoothly. So when we're on scene for a fire or other emergency, every 20 minutes we get a status check from dispatch asking for a status update and to ensure that everyone's alive. These aren't optional. If we don't respond to these, they're going to keep calling, and if we still don't respond, they're going to send law enforcement or someone else to make sure everyone's okay. Likewise, we use plain language. While 10 codes were a thing of the past and 1040 might be a slightly shorter way of saying there's a fire, there's not a point if not everyone on scene or listening on the radio understands what it means. So on the privacy side, please, please, please make sure you're posting regular status updates in whatever centralized place you're using for the incident. While chat threads are great for real-time communication, it can be really frustrating when you try and dive into help and you have to read 200 messages to get up to speed on what in the world is going on. If you think that you're too busy for this, it probably means that you need to pull in more people to help. Also, avoid acronyms and abbreviations, particularly if they're team-specific, because again, it can make people from other teams who are coming to help have a harder time getting up to speed. And finally, especially for larger incidents, you might need to work with non-engineering teams, such as potentially comms, so make sure you have people who are adept at communicating between engineer and non-engineer as necessary. And finally, after an incident is over, we need to ensure that we're doing better next time. This is something where the fire service side could honestly do a lot better. We have reports that we file after every incident, but other than maybe a really, really large incident, any formal review is probably going to be limited to some conversation while we're trying to get the hose back on the fire truck. For privacy incidents, we also use reports. We then have experienced engineers look over the report for a few key things, namely detection, or whether we're able to find similar issues in an automated fashion, escalation, or whether we were able to quickly pull in the people we needed, remediation, or whether the issue was thoroughly handled, and prevention, or whether we can prevent this and similar issues from reoccurring in the future. If we realize that we're lacking in one of these areas, we pull all of the stakeholders into a formal review where we can determine what the necessary follow-ups are and come up with a plan for ensuring that those get completed. Even after an issue is mitigated, we need to ensure that we're doing everything necessary to prevent similar issues from happening and leave our systems and processes in a better state. So to sum things up, incidents are going to happen, so make sure you have a plan beforehand. Know what your centralized place for communication is going to be. Know how you're going to get a hold of people. Then during an incident, make sure you're communicating effectively throughout and posting status updates frequently. And finally, when the incident is finally over, it's not really over until you've taken the time to reflect on it and realize what other things can be improved so you can do better in the future. Thank you.